My mind is blown after a conversation last night with a sister-in-law I always liked. I thought she was weird with me as a reaction to my divorcing and taking my children away in the mid-90s. Divorced ladies were a scandal back then. Most terrible of people. Way worse than the hurtful husband. I dragged my children up on benefits while doing voluntary work and giving up cigarettes so I could buy food. I could not afford enough heating, so we had ice inside the windows every year and little food. No car, no hairdressers, no nice clothes. My children were bullied for their appearance, but I had to buy food before all else. Relatives never checked, and they were very wealthy. I was resentful, but thought, well, my children are not theirs, so they should not be paying for them, but what horrible aunts and uncle. I did work as well when able. Health issues, low pay, still not enough. As my rented house was old and too expensive to heat, money did not stretch to everything. X would often phone and abuse and threaten to burn us out. I still have the tapes and the little handheld recorder. I had to answer his calls but would put the phone receiver near the recorder, 1990s, so I can prove what he was doing. When he died unexpectedly in 2015, I asked his relatives to pay for his funeral. They refused. I have been angry ever since, as these people who had never asked about my children were disgusting to me at the funeral I arranged and paid for. I arranged, etc., as my son was upset. My daughters told me to leave him. Not bury, not pay, but I thought I had to do right by my son. I have wanted so often to go and see these people and tell them what I thought of them, but never had the courage. I did visit with that intention, but always backed out. I've been visiting my sister-in-law recently as I like her, and she was never terrible. Always told her husband, my ex's brother, off when he was nasty to me. Her husband is away at the moment, so I can visit her and we get on great. Yesterday she said something weird. Turns out they knew I left, but he told them we were back together and they believed him. They thought he was a wonderful husband and father, and I was a beau th. They would phone him, arrange to visit, and he would meet them in town and say I was busy. We lived a few hours away, so the visits were not often. They had no idea we were short of heat, etc. No wonder X's brother refused to pay for the funeral and was nasty to me. I can't say they were extremely nasty to our children at the funeral, just not sympathetic. They were polite, but the atmosphere was way off. Brother-in-law was downright rude to me at the funeral. Sister-in-law told him off. So last night when I visited sister-in-law, now in her 80s, and she asked a direct, very surprising question. I told her we were divorced in the 90s, and he was nasty and cruel and stole from me, and fooled me into lending him money, and stuck me with his debts. What can I say? I'm stupid and I know it. I paid his debts when I could not prove they were his, not mine, and lent him money so he could buy a car to get to work. Never repaid, of course. I got a loan for the car when I got a job. In-laws thought he was living with us and paying everything. Children never got so much as a birthday card, no presents, no pocket money from X, unless one of his girlfriends was around. Then he would make a big fuss in front of them and give them money. Brother-in-law is living in a retirement home now. Sister-in-law is living alone, so visiting her has been weird as I didn't want to upset her but do like her and wanted to know why they were so weird and rude to me. I never did get up the courage to ask a direct question. That's why I like sister-in-law. She is very forthright and did ask a question which led to this discovery. I visited last night on my own. Sister-in-law is discreet enough not to ask a question when her hubby or my children were present. My daughter was not with me when I visited last night. I told my daughter what sister-in-law said when I got home. We are both reeling, and so is sister-in-law. Now my daughter wants to phone brother-in-law and make sure he knows I am not a B/TH. Daughter is very relieved as now she knows it was her dad telling more lies and maybe her aunt and uncle might be decent people who stayed away due to her dad's lies, not because they didn't care. So many years of resentment and anger due to X's lies. Waiting now to see if brother-in-law says anything or will just brush it off. Very glad I never threw out the tapes of X's threats. Now I have to check they work as they are ancient. Brother-in-law thinks his brother was the best thing ever on this planet. So I doubt he will believe he was anything less. Writing as I needed to vent and organize my thoughts, not sure it worked. I'm still confused and reeling. I'm in my 60s now and had a hard life. I just want to sort things out have lies about me settled, and maybe have a nice uncle and aunt for my children, even if they are not young anymore. My daughter wants my brother-in-law to apologize to her mother for being rude to me at her dad's funeral. Brother-in-law met my daughter for the first time since she was a baby at the funeral and was very weird with her. I can see why now, as daughter was not upset her loving father was dead. He must have thought we were a family of monsters. No wonder he was rude. Daughter wants to put that right. Writing as I needed to vent and organize my thoughts, not sure it worked. I'm still confused and reeling. Not sure if I'm rambling, but will post anyway to vent. I did my best to make sense. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not speaking up for myself has caused a lot of damage in other situations as well. Funny because people think I am super strong and the type to make things right. I tend to stand up for others and not myself. A very bad habit that I need to break. My daughter is going to visit my sister-in-law on her own to see if my sister-in-law will say things to her that she will not say to me. My sister-in-law is not mean, so she has not asked questions in front of my daughter. She possibly has things to ask my daughter that she would not ask in front of me in case it upsets me. She is also not foolish and might want to see if my daughter's answer contradicts mine. It seems my sister-in-law is aware that something was not adding up over the years. Comment 2. OP seems to be Irish, and divorce was illegal in Ireland between 1937 and 1995. That being said, even then I wouldn't say it was a scandal for most once it was legalized. My grandparents are devout Catholics, and when my uncle married my aunt as soon as her divorce was granted about 10 years after separating from her ex, their only complaint was that they weren't allowed to get married in the church. Maybe I have the wrong idea about it as someone born in the post-legalization era, but I've heard of very few people who thought it was scandalous back in the 90s. Now, for the update, thanks for reading my last post. So, after that conversation with my sister-in-law, things have been, well, interesting of emotions and revelations. A few days after our talk, I decided to visit her again. This time, I brought along some old photos and letters, hoping to piece together more of the past. As we sifted through the memories, she shared more about her perspective. She told me about the times she and her husband tried to visit us, only to be met with excuses from my ex. It was clear they had been fed a web of lies for years. She was genuinely shocked and saddened to learn about the hardships my children and I faced. One evening, my daughter and I decided to call my brother-in-law. It was a tense moment, filled with anticipation and anxiety. When he answered, my daughter took the lead, explaining everything we had discovered. There was a long silence on the other end before he finally spoke. He admitted that he had always found it odd that we never seemed to be around during their visits, but he never questioned his brother's explanations. He sounded genuinely remorseful, but also defensive, still holding onto the image of his brother as a good man. This conversation opened a floodgate of emotions for my daughter. She had always harbored resentment towards her father's side of the family, believing they didn't care about her or her siblings. Now, she was grappling with the realization that they had been deceived just as much as we had. It was a lot to process, and she spent many nights talking to me, trying to make sense of it all. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law and I continued to meet regularly. She became a source of comfort and support, helping me navigate this emotional minefield. She even suggested we visit my brother-in-law together, hoping a face-to-face conversation might help clear the air. I was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed. The visit was awkward, to say the least. My brother-in-law was visibly uncomfortable, but he listened as my sister-in-law and I recounted the years of struggle and abuse we endured. I showed him the tapes of my ex's threats, which seemed to finally break through his defenses. He apologized, albeit reluctantly, and admitted that he had been wrong about me. It wasn't the heartfelt apology I had hoped for, but it was a start. In the weeks that followed, my daughter and I tried to rebuild our relationship with my brother-in-law. It was a slow process, filled with ups and downs. He still struggled to reconcile the image of his brother with the reality we presented. But he made an effort to be more understanding and supportive. My daughter, ever the optimist, believed that with time, we could mend the rift and become a family again. During one of our visits, my sister-in-law shared a story from her past that shed light on her forthright nature. She had grown up in a strict household where speaking out was discouraged. But after marrying my brother-in-law, she found her voice and became the strong, outspoken woman I admired. This revelation made me appreciate her even more, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for her presence in my life. As we navigated these new dynamics, I couldn't help but reflect on the years of hardship and resilience. My children and I had faced so much, yet we had come out stronger on the other side. The lies and deceit had caused immense pain, but they had also brought us closer together. We were a family, bound by love and determination. One evening, as I sat with my daughter, she asked me a question that caught me off guard. She wanted to know if I ever regretted marrying her father. It was a difficult question, one that I had pondered many times over the years. I told her that while I regretted the pain and suffering we endured, I didn't regret the love and joy my children brought into my life. They were my strength, my reason for pushing through the darkest times. In the midst of all this, I received a letter from my ex's former employer. It was a formal apology, acknowledging the mistreatment I had faced and offering a small compensation for the years of unpaid debts. It wasn't much, but it felt like a small victory, a recognition of the injustice we had endured. As we moved forward, I focused on rebuilding our lives. My daughter and I continued to visit my sister-in-law, strengthening our bond with her. My brother-in-law remained a work in progress, but there were glimmers of hope. He started sending birthday cards to my children, small gestures that meant the world to them. Through it all, I held onto the tapes of my ex's threats, a reminder of the strength and resilience that had carried us through. They were a testament to the battles we had fought and won, a symbol of our survival. Thank you for reading. Aita for confronting my girlfriend about faking cancer to get my attention. Me, 27-year-old male, and my girlfriend, 31-year-old female, have been together for about 4.5 years. However, there has been a break in between. It was about a year ago that I was traveling and I broke up with her, mainly because I wanted to continue traveling, and she wanted to go on a vacation instead. The breakup was really hard on her, but at the time I thought I was doing the right thing by following my heart and doing what I wanted to do. It was about 2 weeks after, and she called me saying that she was diagnosed with cancer in her colon. I really freaked out about it, and I kept in touch with her frequently to check if she was okay and not going to die. Now, the weird thing is that during all this, she kept working her very intense job for about 60 hours a week. She also did not tell her friends and family about it, with the only exceptions being her brother and one friend. Both the timing and the fact that she was still working, as well as the fact that she barely told anyone, seemed a little bit weird to me. I decided to push my weird feelings aside and keep checking in with her. Out of the few times I checked in with her, she was often either hungover from partying at a festival or working. That just doesn't sound like the kind of activity someone with cancer would or should commit to. Nevertheless, I was really worried about her well-being. To make things even weirder, she told me she did not undergo surgery, which according to research is always the go-to treatment for colon cancer. Instead, she told me that she was able to fight the cancer with chemo pills alone, which allegedly she only took for 3 months, and did not suffer any hair loss until she was completely cancer-free. Once I got back to town, we ended up getting back together. I straight up asked her if she really had cancer. She got mildly upset and asked if I really think she would lie to me like that. The thing is, though, she never went back to the doctors to do a checkup, while it is my understanding that this is always a must after beating cancer. She also literally never brought it up, which I think is kind of weird too. We are having a pretty good time, but the doubt about all this just keeps bothering me slightly. Did she lie about all this to keep in touch after we broke up? Or did all these uncommon things really happen as she said they did? There's no way to truly find out. What do you guys think is likely the truth here? What would you do? We are having a pretty good time together, but these doubts just keep haunting me. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. People have cancer in all different kinds of ways. But if you're in a relationship with someone you suspect of lying about cancer, you should probably end it. Comment 2. I actually had colon cancer, and I would be greatly surprised if she is not lying. There are so many holes in her story. It's like Swiss cheese. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post. So, about 2 weeks ago, I decided to confront my girlfriend about my lingering doubts. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about her cancer story. I asked her if she could show me any medical records or proof of her diagnosis and treatment. She got really defensive and accused me of not trusting her. This led to a huge argument, and she stormed out of the apartment. I felt terrible for pushing her, but I needed to know the truth. A few days later, she came back and apologized for getting so upset. She said she understood why I had doubts and offered to show me some paperwork. She pulled out a folder with some documents, but when I looked closely, I noticed that some of the dates and details didn't add up. I didn't say anything right away because I didn't want to start another fight, but my suspicions grew even stronger. Around the same time, I started noticing some strange behavior from her. She was getting a lot of phone calls and texts from an unknown number, and she would always step out of the room to answer them. One night, I decided to check her phone while she was in the shower. I know it was a breach of privacy, but I was desperate for answers. I found messages from a guy named Mark, and it was clear from their conversations that they were more than just friends. They had been meeting up regularly, and she had even confided in him about our relationship issues. I confronted her about Mark, and she admitted that they had been seeing each other while we were broken up. She claimed that it was over now, and that she was committed to making our relationship work. I was devastated and didn't know what to believe anymore. I felt like my whole world was falling apart. In the midst of all this, I made a huge mistake at work. I was so distracted by everything going on with my girlfriend that I missed an important deadline. My boss was furious and gave me a formal warning. This added even more stress to an already overwhelming situation. As if things couldn't get any worse, I found out that my girlfriend had been lying about her cancer diagnosis. I ran into her brother at a coffee shop and we started talking. I mentioned my concerns about her health, and he looked confused. He told me that she had never been diagnosed with cancer and that she had made the whole thing up to get my attention. I was in shock. I couldn't believe that she would go to such lengths to manipulate me. I confronted her one last time, and she finally admitted the truth. She said she was scared of losing me and thought that pretending to have cancer would make me come back to her. I was furious and heartbroken. I couldn't believe that someone I loved and trusted could lie to me about something so serious. We broke up for good after that. I couldn't stay with someone who had lied to me and betrayed my trust in such a profound way. The fallout from all of this has been incredibly difficult. I've been struggling with feelings of anger, sadness, and betrayal. It's hard to move on when you feel like your entire relationship was built on lies. Looking back, I realized that there were red flags all along. I should have trusted my instincts and confronted her sooner. But I wanted to believe that she was telling the truth because I loved her and didn't want to lose her. Now I'm left picking up the pieces and trying to rebuild my life. I've been seeing a therapist to help me process everything that's happened. It's been helpful to talk to someone who can offer an outside perspective and help me work through my emotions. I'm also trying to focus on my job and make sure I don't let my personal life affect my work again. As for my girlfriend, I have no idea what she's doing now. We haven't spoken since the breakup, and I have no desire to reach out to her. I need to focus on myself and my own healing. One thing that has come out of all this is that I've learned a lot about myself and what I need in a relationship. I know now that trust and honesty are non-negotiable for me. I won't settle for anything less in the future. Thank you for reading. Thank you. Aita for skipping my sister-in-law's party after she flaked on all my important events. So my 26-year-old sister-in-law, 27-year-old, my fiancé's brother's now wife, and I have known each other for 3 years. We don't hang out individually, so everything she flaked on has been a group event or activity. She flaked or ghosted all of my wedding dress appointments, flaked on all my birthdays, opted out of getting makeup done together for my wedding. I got my makeup done with her for hers, even though she booked me without my permission, flaked on double dates, etc. I have always come to every party or celebration, met her family, came to her super last-minute bachelorette party, flew out of the country in May for her wedding, etc. Because she asked, and why wouldn't I? But she hasn't shown up for anything honoring me or initiated by me ever. Although we are different, I'm type A, a little more academic and slightly reserved. She's type B, more free-spirited. We do get along and have things in common. We have confided in each other before. The most recent thing she flaked on was a dinner cruise last month to celebrate my master's degree. Her husband couldn't make it, and he told me very early on. But she was supposed to come. My mom paid for everyone's cruise tickets. She bailed 2 hours before via text, saying she had a headache and asked to do something another time. Because of her history and the timing, I was upset, and it was the last straw for me. My mother paid $100 per person. I hate consolation promises or hangouts for flaking. I was honest but nice. I told her that my mom paid for her spot and that it made me sad that she has been unable to come to a lot of the things celebrating me and my fiancé. She didn't respond to me for 2 days due to guilt and anxiety. Her husband basically told her she needed to respond. He was pretty upset with her. Her reply was that she was truly sorry. It's not personal. It has every bit to do with her anxiety, and that she struggles to get close to people. No mention of a headache, and she never offered to reimburse my mom. I can understand struggling with closeness, but I don't think it's okay to be flaky. I was never proposing being best friends forever. She and her husband are relocating soon. Her husband got a job out of state. They will be visiting home at least 4 times a year. There are 2 goodbye parties coming up, one at their house, another laid-back dinner at our father-in-law's house. I don't want to go to either. I want to give an excuse, but still send a tiny gift. I'm kind of just wanting to draw boundaries and not keep giving efforts I don't receive back. Would I be wrong to add, I've gotten so many amazing responses. I've gotten so much support and validation, and also some tough but respectful love. -1 comment, which luckily the person deleted. You guys have all given me great perspectives, including being careful about hurting my brother-in-law's feelings, who is much more innocent in this situation. I also have to remember my fiancé in this, and of course his parents. I think the consensus is, it wouldn't be wrong for me to at least skip their house party. The dinner party, I'm going to think very hard about because I've heard good arguments for both sides. At the end of the day, it comes naturally to me to be there for people. Holding myself back feels very unnatural. I'm definitely going to think about this. Now, for a few comments before the update, comment 1. Honestly, I think your response is totally fine, and it would be okay if you do skip the 2 going away parties. It is worth thinking about if you want to go to support your other in-laws / enjoy spending time with them, and possibly still going for those reasons. But reciprocity is really important in relationships, and it sounds like you aren't getting that. I also want to say, whatever you decide now doesn't have to be forever. If a year from now you notice that your sister-in-law has really made an effort to show up for you, now that you've directly told her that her flaking so much hurts your feelings and you want to, you can try again. Anyway, sorry you're dealing with this. It really sucks to have to put all of the effort into a relationship of any kind. Comment 2. How she has responded to every event tells you about her. The same holds true for you. How you respond will tell everything about you. It is up to you whether you allow her behavior to determine how you behave. Any retaliatory action by you will only reflect on you, because no one else will really understand, and she will never get it. She has issues you cannot fix, and vice versa. Be the good human and go to the parties. Enjoy the people you love. Life is pretty dang short, sister, and people will disappoint you daily. And even you will let someone down at some point. We all do. Grudges get heavier by the minute. Set them down. Shake it off. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, the last 2 weeks have been pretty tough of emotions and decisions. After much contemplation, I decided to skip the house party at my sister-in-law's place. I sent a small gift with a heartfelt note, wishing them well on their new journey. I thought it would be a good compromise, showing that I still care, but also setting a boundary. My fiancé was supportive of my decision, understanding that I needed to protect my own feelings. However, I did decide to attend the dinner party at my in-laws' house. I figured it would be less intimate and more about family, which might make it easier for me to handle. The dinner was pretty uneventful at first. Everyone was making small talk, and I tried to engage as much as I could without feeling too awkward. My sister-in-law was her usual self, friendly but somewhat distant. I couldn't help but notice that she seemed more comfortable around others, than she ever did around me. Then, something unexpected happened. My mother-in-law pulled me aside and handed me an envelope. She said it was from my sister-in-law and that I should read it when I got home. I was puzzled, but didn't think much of it at the time. The rest of the evening went by without any major incidents, and I left feeling a bit more at peace, thinking maybe things were finally settling down. When I got home, I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter from my sister-in-law. She apologized again for her flakiness and explained that she had been dealing with severe anxiety and depression for years. She mentioned that she had been seeing a therapist, but hadn't told anyone in the family because she didn't want to be seen as weak or a burden. She also revealed that she had been diagnosed with a chronic illness that often left her feeling exhausted and in pain, which explained her frequent cancellations. Reading the letter, I felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, I felt guilty for being so hard on her without knowing the full story. On the other hand, I was frustrated that she hadn't been honest with me from the beginning. It was a lot to process, and I didn't know how to feel or what to do next. The next day, I decided to talk to my fiancé about the letter. He was surprised but supportive, suggesting that I reach out to my sister-in-law to talk things through. I was hesitant, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I texted her, asking if we could meet up for coffee to talk. She agreed, and we set a date for later that week. When we met, the conversation was awkward at first. We both fumbled with our words, trying to find the right way to express our feelings. Eventually, she opened up about her struggles, and I could see the pain in her eyes. She explained that her illness made it difficult for her to commit to plans because she never knew how she would feel on any given day. She also admitted that she had been afraid to get close to me because she didn't want to disappoint me. I told her how her actions had hurt me and how I had felt unimportant and overlooked. She apologized again, and I could see that she genuinely meant it. We talked for a long time, and by the end of our conversation, I felt like we had reached a new understanding. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. In the days that followed, I noticed a change in my sister-in-law. She started making more of an effort to reach out and include me in her life. She invited me to a small gathering with a few close friends, and I decided to go. It was a pleasant evening, and I felt more connected to her than I had in a long time. However, the situation also forced me to confront some difficult truths about myself. I realized that I had been holding on to a lot of resentment, and that I needed to work on letting go of those negative feelings. I also had to accept that my sister-in-law might never be the reliable, consistent person I wanted her to be, and that was okay. People have their own struggles, and sometimes all we can do is try to understand and support them as best as we can. One evening, while talking to my fiancé, he shared something that gave me a new perspective. He told me about a time when he had struggled with anxiety and how it had affected his relationships. Hearing his story made me realize that mental health issues can be incredibly isolating and that sometimes people just need a little extra compassion and understanding. As I navigated these new dynamics, I also had to deal with the fallout from my decision to skip the house party. My brother-in-law was initially hurt, but after explaining my reasons and sharing the letter from his wife, he understood. He appreciated my honesty and said he was glad we were working things out. Reflecting on everything, I couldn't help but think about my own past and how it had shaped my reactions. Growing up, I had always been the dependable one, the person everyone could count on. It was a role I took pride in, but it also made me less tolerant of others' inconsistencies. This experience with my sister-in-law made me realize that I needed to be more flexible and understanding. In the end, I think this whole ordeal has brought us closer as a family. It's been a challenging journey, but it's also been a learning experience. I'm hopeful that my sister-in-law and I can continue to build a stronger relationship, one based on honesty and mutual support. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.